let's start. My name is Ahmed. I'm the Solutions Director of Gulf Commercial Group. It's our pleasure to have you onboarded in our presentation today. Me and my colleague Ali will go over a very quick webinar to speak about our mobile identity and cardless access platform that can be delivered to the business. Just to give you very quick insights about Gulf Commercial Group. Gulf Commercial Group is a part of Ubashi Group, which is a big family conglomerate office that span over multiple industries, as you can see in the screen. So we already have multiple companies and multiple industries where Ubashi Group exists in, whether through a full ownership or investment and joint ventures with those companies. As you can see, we are a part of the technology cluster of Ubashi Group. As GCG Enterprise Solutions. So GCG Enterprise Solutions is having more than 200 qualified employees. We have in the market since 38 years. We operate in UAE and Oman, and we recently also we established our office in Saudi. We have very strong history or track of automations, successfully delivered a lot of projects in that area. We provide 24/7 support. We are ICV certified for people in the government who knows that. We always partner with the best vendors, and this is a clear example today with our partnership with MicroStrategy and other system integrator in order to present our digital ID platform and mobile identity platform. So in very nutshell, very quickly, GCG, this is the areas that GCG is trying to offer. So we are speaking about emerging tech, building automation and system business services, print service, enterprise solutions. So our solution always span over all those areas. Our also specifically digital transformation solution, we focus on the custom development. We do RPA and workflow and automations. We do analytics, and we do ECM as well as digital signature and many other services. Please feel free to contact us at any point of time so we can help you on all of those requirements. This is an example of our last 2 years of project that we just delivered in multiple areas, whether it's digital signature, whether it's ECM workflow, paperless solutions, and automation areas. This is the partners that we are dealing with. So we are a part of, we already partner with DocuSign, partner with mFiles, partner with Mentex and UiPath in the RPA and many other platforms or vendors. So I will leave now the mic and give the floor to my colleague Ali, who can really speak and present from his side. So Ali, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I am. Just 1 second, please.
Excellent.
So just a bit of background about myself before I start the presentation. Basically, I've been working, I come with 20 years of experience, 16 of which have been in the Middle East or in the MENA region. Over the last 11 years, my primary focus has been on digital transformation. Some of the things that I've worked on is having launched the first Sharia-compliant digital bank in the world and the first digital bank in the region. And many other initiatives related to digital transformation in the financial services and non-financial services sector. The latest initiative we've been working on is the 21st century mobile ID, which is what this presentation is about. I'll take you through a very brief presentation on the overall solution and how it can add value to your organization. I'll start off with why the idea came to us. What is it that we were seeing and hearing from the different parties that we met? And then we can go into the details on each of the components. So to start off with, there are many factors, impacting overall organizations. There are mainly 4 strategic drivers, I would say, which is evolved consumer behavior, operational efficiency, new touchless world, and introduction of IoT. Those are the main 4 strategic drivers that we're driving people to start looking at digitalization. What do we mean by evolved consumer behavior? people were starting to get more comfortable with technology, anything they can avoid. So such as, for example, when they're going to an airline, booking their ticket through their mobile phone, checking in through their mobile phone, processing banking transactions via their mobile phone. So what we started to see were people were starting to become a lot more comfortable with technology and moving away from the stereotypes of I need to go to the branch or I need to go do XYZ. And the reason why this evolution has happened is because technology has made available instant gratification. So by completing the form on my phone, I immediately get my ID or I immediately get my bank card or whatever it may be. Also, it allows me to personalize, so I'm not just seeing something that is generic. And then finally, what it does do is it gives me basically control over my environment. When we talk about operational efficiency, we're talking about the fact that using technology, a lot of these companies have the AI and robotics, have managed to reduce costs in terms of processing mundane transactions that allow them to better leverage their human capital and enhance on their customer experience. IoT, so IoT, if you take a look at IoT in all of its essence, where it really has made the most significant impact is on residential and facilities and commercial buildings, whereby having control has made them more efficient in terms of, let's say, power consumption and many other ideas that have been brought to the table, which is allowing executives to recognize the impact of their facilities on their bottom line as well as on their brand. And then finally, the new touchless world with coronavirus coming and impacting everybody's behavior in terms of touching common surfaces. The concept of biometrics was thrown out. A lot of organizations were using biometrics to verify employees or to verify students or whatever. But because of the COVID-19, all of the biometrics were thrown out. That's when organizations started to adopt the concept of smart facilities. It could be smart campus, smart buildings, smart properties, whatever it is that whatever sector that you're in. And the idea behind it is really about transforming experience, improving interaction experience, enhancing sense of security, and reducing costs. I mean, as we were mentioning before, those are the reasons why a lot of organizations have opted to apply the smart facility strategy in order to tackle these drivers and these challenges that they're facing. There are several technologies that are out there that work in digitalization or that support digitalization. You've got mobile solutions, you've got robotics, you've got data analytics, you've got API, and you've got security. What we're doing here at GCG and Digitech, which is we've got Additum, which is a mobile ID, and which is what this presentation is about, and data analytics using hyper-intelligence technology. So we did a survey about IDs, and we asked users what are some of the challenges that they face, and a lot of people complain about the fact that they carry too many IDs in their wallets, collecting and exchanging or updating or removing the card or returning the cards is always a cumbersome process. They don't have time for it, and it's something very mundane. In a lot of cases, they decide to pay the penalty and not go through the headache of having to return a card. Another one is they consistently forget their credentials, so residents, employees, students don't return their credentials because it's just a cumbersome process. Or sorry, they forget their IDs because it's just another plastic or item that they need to carry. And then finally, in, for example, buildings, facilities, universities, gyms, there's always this statement that we get, which is, we don't know what's going on. We're not aware of events. We have to go look at the poster or the bulletin, or we have to specifically go into our email to find what the announcements were related to that business. A smaller portion of individuals were talking about issues in onboarding that they face. So, for example, delay in printing the card, not enough plastic cards. They ran out of plastic cards. Fingerprint reader issues is one thing that everybody also complained about when fingerprints were allowed, whereby the reader wasn't working very well. And then they had to carry more than one plastic card in order to access the facility. So they had one for the car park, one for the front gate, and then one for example, the offices. There was one customer that we were working with that had 6 different access cards for their facilities, which was virtually insane in terms of access readers and access cards. We also spoke to entities. So one of the concerns that they highlighted was they have a concern about sharing of IDs or sharing of access credentials. We had an instance where one employee was sharing his ID card with the driver from Uber Eats in order to save the time and stop people from harassing him so he can deliver the food hot. Or we had one student who basically shared his ID with his friend so he can go play on the basketball court inside the university. Many situations that we had like this. Again, people facing issues in terms of onboarding, having to maintain plastic cards, the stock, the archiving, having the team to manage the cards, the issuance and the management is always a problem. And then finally, ex-users not returning the card, which is very expensive. We've had also 65% of entities tell us that fingerprint readers, issues with the fingerprint readers, lack of on-premise visibility, lack of app download, which is also another thing that they told us about, security breaches, fading of IDs, which is another thing that they told us about. So, you know, the employee ID, they're with you for 5-6 years, they put it in their wallet, there's friction in their wallet, and the ID details disappear. So we then introduced the concept of additive. So additive is basically the conversion of the plastic ID or employee badge or resident badge or student badge to be on the mobile phone. It's not only the ID, but it's also the physical access card integrated with biometrics for those customers that have high security environments that they want to maintain. So we were trying to evaluate what is the type of, you know, what is the impact of such a solution. One thing we were sure of is that we will be able to address a 300 billion identity fraud problem. We also are dealing with an expensive and risky communication, people not having, using their emails for communication, and providing people with communication on their emails is always a risk. So can we provide them with an alternative solution to that? We also have evolved behavior, so aligning to people's behavior in terms of being digital and then increasing security. If I was to, you know, if I was to share with you one slide that tells you what additive does, this is it. In one solution, you're talking about it's a mobile ID. It is a mobile physical key for doors, lockers, turnstiles. It's a logical access key. It opens lockers. It has visitor management capability, digital business card, communicator. Also, it has QR code, self-service portal, remote management, telemetry, payments integration, attendance management, and operational risk. That was a big, long-winded answer, but that just shows you the power of the solution in terms of the breadth of the capabilities it has. So if, as an employee, or let's say a student, you come into university, you can access the car park using your card, you can get into your lockers, you can put your stuff into the lockers, you can access printers, the logical assets, you can verify attendance, you're able to also grant them access to systems, let them book books in your university as an example. You could also allow the students to make payments. And then for those that are extra controlling, they can even know where the student is on premise using BLE or NFC. So how does the mobile ID compare to the plastic card? We're talking about, if you compare the digital card, the biometrics doesn't have an ID. The plastic card obviously has an ID, but the digital card also comes with an ID. Then if you talk about biometrics, obviously the plastic card doesn't come with biometrics. Both the biometrics and the digital card come with biometrics. So you see, just in terms of these basic capabilities, the digital card supersedes both technologies. And then when you talk about multi-factor authentication, QR code verification, remote issuance, the digital card supersedes everything else that's offered compared to the biometric solution and the plastic card. This is just a reiteration of the fact that you could use it for turnstiles, lockers, car park stores, network, service, applications, and workstations. One ID with an underlying identity management system that gives your organization control as to what they allow access. So here are the key benefits. I thought we'd share with you some key benefits of the solution. The first and foremost is you basically would address authentication and security issues. So the plastic card in itself can be lost or stolen. The other problem that you have with it is it's owner anonymous, which means anybody who finds the card, so long as that card is not deactivated, then the other person's able to use it. They're static, so you know, I join a company when I'm 20, I leave the company when I'm 45, and it's still the same picture on the ID, even the same ID number. Some organizations have become clever not to put the job title so that they don't have to keep changing the card every year, despite the fact that the ID badge fades. And then there's no way to authenticate the card. For cost reasons, they don't put any hologram or other types of technologies in it. So if you compare from a security perspective, if you compare the plastic card to the digital ID, you see that losing or forgetting IDs is a lot less probable. It's still probable for you to lose the phone. That's why we didn't put it at 100%. But it's a lot less probable. Sharing of IDs is completely stopped. So employees, residents, students can no longer share IDs. Forging of IDs is also completely stopped with the technology that we've deployed. Buddy punching is also out the window, which is, let's say I don't want to attend to work today. I can speak with my colleague and ask him to check me in and verify my attendance. That's no longer possible with our digital ID. And then you are fully in control of your ID. So even when an employee leaves or student leaves your facilities, you're able to stop them and basically call back the card. So we took the known issues of IDs just to show you what we've done to enhance the security. Defacing of ID, as well as sharing of ID credentials with colleagues and relatives and third-party individuals, and consistently forgetting and losing the ID. These are the issues that we were told about. So by deploying the solution on mobile, you've addressed the first two issues. And by enabling biometric, you basically stop people from being able to share their IDs. IDs not containing pictures or pictures outdated. In our case, we have in-app photo submission, allowing your students, residents, employees to regularly update their pictures based on a policy that you define every 3 years, every 1 year, every 2 years. It's completely your call. Leavers not returning their cards. So this is just leavers taking their IDs with them in the old plastic card. You have employees who leave an organization and they have their IDs with them and they don't return them. Or somebody who used to live in a community and they ended up leaving and they don't return the access card. By having the control over the ID digitally, you're able to revoke that access for that user. No way to validate ID, which is one thing security officers have consistently told us. Somebody shares an ID, there's no way to validate unless they have to call or whatever it is. So what we've done is we've integrated dynamic QR codes inside the app. The security guard scans the QR code to verify the authenticity of the card. And then badges not having clear expiry date, all of the badges have a clear expiry date. You can have just the status of it, whether active or inactive, or you can have the expiry date. We also did, one of the really exciting things we did over the past year is we held a hackathon. We asked users to try to hack our ID and see what happens. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it had to happen virtually, but nevertheless, it was still an exciting experience for us to see what happened. So the first thing that we were told in terms of challenges was we noticed that people were sharing phones. So in Saudi or in Dubai, the average income of an individual was quite high. So they would typically be able to maintain 2 phones. One phone is their own personal phone, their business, and the other one is for, playing around and sharing with other people. So by putting biometric and making the ID biometric enabled, we stop people from being able to share the phone. The other thing we noticed was we had users that were screenshotting the ID and sharing it with each other. We deployed an anti-capture technology which stops people from being able to screenshot the ID. Another really interesting idea that somebody came up with, they took another phone and took a screenshot of the ID on there from the other phone, and then they played around with the image to make it as their ID. To stop this, we deployed, just allow me to go back so I can show you what it is, a small hologram, which is a dynamic GIF, turns around itself, changes the color, allowing your organization to stop people from being able to take pictures of the IDs. Another thing that we had was we had somebody who uploaded a picture of their friend instead of themselves on the ID. So we've used facial recognition against the database, your database, the government's database, to verify when a person uploads their picture, it is the correct picture. We could even verify it against the ID that they've uploaded to verify the picture against the government-issued ID. This was very interesting. So if you try to, when we entered the biometrics, what happened was users, they would try to enter the biometrics 2 or 3 times. And then once they fail to enter the biometrics, the system will automatically, Android or Apple, would ask them to use the passcode to access the phone. To stop this from completely, now we're able to enforce biometrics, which means if you fail to enter the biometrics, rather than giving you a passcode, the system will lock the app and ask you to speak with admin or reception in order to verify and reactivate your ID. We also had exploited native biometrics weaknesses. So this was very interesting. We found out from the hackathon that you're able to upload more than 1 biometric on a single device. So on an iPhone, you can put your biometric, my biometric, and somebody else's. It could be a fingerprint, it could be a facial recognition. So we were working with a high security organization who wanted to stop this completely, and therefore, as a result of which, we developed for them a biometric solution, which now is available for everybody, that captures the biometric inside the app. And I'll explain to you the difference between the proprietary biometrics and the native biometrics in a second. And then finally, there was forging of IDs. We've developed a multi-factor PKI authentication using one of the latest technologies in PKI called split PKI, which means the mobile app only contains half of the PKI key. Obviously, you can pick and choose of these features that you want to include in the app. They're not all enforced, so I don't want anybody to get scared like this is maybe too high security for us. These are for the highest security. We're sharing with you what we've done for our customers. So what's the difference between the native biometrics and the solution that we've developed? Native biometrics allows users to store more than 1 biometric on the same device. So I can store it, like I said before, you can store your biometric, my biometric, and somebody else's biometric. When an app is trying to verify a biometric, it can't distinguish between the owners of the biometrics based on a privacy policy from iOS and Android. It stores the biometrics inside the phone, which is standard. However, as you already know, if you put a picture against an iPhone, you're able to sometimes spoof the phone and enter the app. And then finally, the native biometrics only works with the biometric hardware on the phone. What we've done differently, the technology that we've developed, first of all, it captures only 1 image. That image is stored in the card inside the app, and the verification happens against it. Stores biometric on the phone or on the server, depending on the client's requirements and security requirements. We also have a anti-spoof technology, which requires the user to lift the phone, so verifying that they're alive. And then finally, our solution basically relies on the device's camera. So even if you have employees, let's say, that don't have biometric-enabled phones, for blue-collar workers, construction, cleaners, whatever it is, you're still able to use it so long as they have a smartphone that has a camera on it. Transforming user experience, if you compare the digital ID to the plastic card, convenience, you can basically, it's super convenient. It's with them on the mobile phone. They're not having to carry anything with them. Intuitive, easy to use. You can issue it to them anywhere and everywhere. Alignment and adoption to the digital concept. It's more hygienic than the plastic card. It's balanced, but however, it still requires power. This is the one weakness that we have. Again, if you take a look at how does it work, some of the issues that we've heard from plastic cards, it's a hassle to apply and collect IDs, manual form increasing cost, inconvenience that users face at time of renewal, and visitor registration is cumbersome. So what we've done is we've deployed digital onboarding, and I'll take you through digital onboarding in a second. Remote management, giving you control over the ID. In-app photo submission, we've already talked about it. Visitor management from the ID itself, and multiple keys in one ID, so reducing the number of badges that a person has to carry. Here's just a simple onboarding process. This is just out of the box. The onboarding process is completely customizable. The person downloads the app. The app can be white labeled in your brand name. They register themselves. They capture their ID using OCR. You validate the data that was captured. Once that is done, you take a selfie. And once the selfie is done, it verifies that you're alive and the ID is created. It goes to admin, then admin approves it. Also, like I said, you can send your pictures for the ID from the convenience of your home using our in-app photo submission, and then you can remotely manage it. Another cool feature of ID that we've had, if you select our recommended hardware, we're able to give you a very unique access experience. So obviously you have the badge mode, which other technologies have in the market, where you put your phone against the reader. But you've also got other ideas where you can swipe your hand on the reader and the reader unlocks. You can double tap the phone in your pocket and the reader unlocks without having to open the phone. You could also use the remote, which works up to 20 meters away from the gate. You can ask Siri to unlock the door, and then finally you've got hands-free mode. As I mentioned before, we've also got locker capability, which is very, very useful within the same app, so allowing your users to control their lockers. Our technology allows you for hot locker and reserved locker. Hot locker means first come, first serve, and reserved locker means named people for each of those lockers. We also have smart geofencing, which reminds people when they're leaving, let's say the university or the gym or whatever it is, it reminds them that they have stuff in the locker they might want to take it out. Sorry. Again, we spoke about the logical access. You can use it with server networks, hardware, printers. We use QR code, geofencing, and Bluetooth and facial recognition technology. One of my favorite ones is the geofencing. So if an employee is not within a specific territory or country, you can actually lock him from accessing the system if you have high security platforms. Visitors, this is one of the biggest issues and costly issues that organizations face. The management of visitors, especially when they come on site, and the amount of time it takes for the security to process them. In our case, what we do is the user can download an app, a specific app for visitors. Hosts can basically invite visitors, and then when visitors, when the visitor is approved, they receive an invite, which could be in the form of a badge, and a security team is notified automatically. With the invite, you can send both a Bluetooth NFC access or a QR code. You have the option to choose between both. Guests could also request an invite from a host. Once the host approves their invite, the visitor receives an ID, and the security team is automatically notified. And then once the visitor scans their ID on site, the host is automatically notified that the visitor has arrived, and they should go down and greet them. The power that some of these organizations have, for universities or for commercial properties, they have a significant population which could leverage, be very useful from a marketing campaign and for driving brand awareness. So what we've done is we've included the capability for organizations. Let's say if I'm an Amada employee, I don't know if most of you guys know this, and I share my ID at Chili's, I get a 20% discount. What happens is they have to give the ID at that location, and there's no way to verify the ID. What we're able to do now is we give an app to Chili's, who then can scan the QR code on the ID and verify that the ID is valid and offer the discount to the student or to the employee as well. Engagement and brand. So let's talk about communication. I need you to be very careful. This is not push notification, which is what everybody seems to think is the way to go. There's push notification, of course, in the app, but this is an actual communication platform, giving organizations power to communicate using text, video, images, similar to WhatsApp, but also allowing them to advertise or to promote anything that they want to those users. And also one of my favorite features is polling, giving you the ability to send poll messages and get people's perspective on different ideas that you're contemplating. You own the brand, you own the image. It's highly flexible. It can be changed any way you want in terms of the brand. I don't know. I mean, each organization has its own designs, but here are just some ideas that we worked with for several customers in the region. And it's also something that you can make engaging during Ramadan or National Day. You're able to send IDs to your residents. And as I was mentioning before, you're also able to send out advertising messages, from network partners for students, for residential properties, whatever it is that whatever vertical that you operate in. This was a new feature that we introduced in the last 6 months, where we had one company ask us to integrate also a digital business card. Their employees are attending a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of Microsoft Teams meetings. So what happens is there's no way to share the business card. To mitigate this challenge, what we've done is we've deployed a virtual business card on the app, allowing employees, once the Zoom meeting is done or during the Zoom meeting, to share their business card with their counterparts online. You can put both video, you can put still images, you can put a URL that takes people to that page. It also has an action, so you can put an action for a reminder for what needs to happen, and then sharing of the card has never been easier. You could use QR code scanning, you can share it via WeTransfer or WhatsApp message or email, or many of the other options that we have. Telemetry services. Now, this is not for everybody, but we still put it in the presentation for you guys. We have the ability to issue dashboards. As I've mentioned before, we've integrated with MicroStrategy, one of the leading intelligence dashboards companies in the market. Also with the hyper-intelligence technologies, you're able to generate unlimited insight and invaluable insight for your business. We also offer telemetry services using our technology called Mawjood, up to 1 meter variation for your employees, for your suppliers and whatnot. Now, there's a lot of security concerns, so that's why, and privacy concerns, that's why we focus mainly on facial recognition and Bluetooth, which means outside of the facilities, we don't know where you are. You could be wherever you want to be, or the employee could be anywhere they want to be. This is very useful for security officers, for tellers, for teachers, for students, letting you know where they are and how much of their time they spent on their desk or in class or at their station throughout the day. We also have the ability to provide you with analytics on the logical access, giving you insight into what the person's doing throughout the day. And then finally, the last benefit, I would say, is cost reduction and revenue growth. So what do we mean by cost reduction? Companies that have looked into our technology have realized 50 to 70% reduction in card management, but also they've also reduced the cost of bulk SMS and advertising cost. The other thing is you improve your app return on investment, but because the ID is on the phone and the access card is on the phone, 100% of your employees, your residents, your students need to download the app. So automatically you solve the problem that I was mentioning before, download has been limited, and increase it to 100%. Also, because the app has a key, you can even make sure that they open the app every time, basically making the app being opened at least twice a day, both of which result in improved return on investment on the app and your apps having a higher impression. Some of the features that we've done for customers, such as remote site attendance, self-service requests using the app, HR self-service requests, maintenance self-service requests, student self-service requests, payments integration. We've also integrated insurance cards into this technology, and systems for the customers and whatnot. Another add-on that we have is an operational risk event, what we call an emergency beacon. In the event that you have an operational risk event, you can press a button letting all of your staff, students, or residents know that there's an emergency and they can react to it. So why Additon? Again, it's one of the rare technologies that offers both readers, beacons, facial recognition, and geofencing. We're hardware and software agnostic, which is something we pride ourselves on. We obviously have a preferred hardware provider, because of the flexibility and a lot of the technology that we developed with them. But we work with any of the global players that are out there today. This is just the hardware partner that we have, offers one of the most advanced readers in the market, offering both QR code, BLE, and NFC, along with RFID in the same reader for organizations. We're the only company in the world that has its own proprietary, or we have the only ID in the world that has its own proprietary biometrics technology. We comply with local regulation and future local regulation, which is having the data on premises or within the geography. And we're the only company in the world, if you use our recommended hardware, that's able to offer you issuance of the ID offline. All other technologies in the market, all of them without fail, only are able to issue the mobile ID via cloud. We're the only company that is able to offer you the technology offline, or the mobile ID offline. And finally, we realized throughout early on that not everybody wants all of the components. So what we've done is we've made it modular. You pick and choose which one you want, and you pay on a subscription basis. Therefore, if your number of users drop, then obviously your payments drop, and also the functionality you decide on what you pay for. And then this is the last bit that we have, which is basically we were very focused on the hardware that we choose to make sure that it remains that customers can deploy it with minimal cost or minimal investment on the hardware. So we've tried as hard as we can to offer something that is really plug and play as much as possible. That's it.